And 3, 2, 1, and we're live. One interesting thing I have to ask about
Sure.
is if you type in Kevin Westall, I'm not saying everybody's going to, but if you type in the name, it says Kevin Westall Bacon. Do you want to give us a little bit of context as to what
Sure.
people can expect?
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, I do, and I've been, speaking to the press about the case in the last couple of weeks as well for a number of reasons. But one of my clients is a man named James Bacon, who goes by Jamie Bacon, and Jamie Bacon is probably the most well-known person that's associated with gang life in the Lower Mainland, and in particular with an offense with a tragedy that occurred that's colloquially known as the Surrey Six, from 2008, where there was a gangland type shooting, and several people that were involved in organized crime were killed, but also a number of innocent people who were in the wrong place at the wrong time ultimately were killed as a result of it as well. On the Crown and the police allegation, it's not that Mr. Bacon was present for that or that carried it out directly, but that all of this happened as a result of a plan that he was allegedly part of, as part of his organized crime lifestyle. Recently, that case has been in the news because we ultimately elected to enter a guilty plea to conspiracy to commit murder, as opposed to, and the Crown ultimately is not proceeding on the charge of murder. So it'll lead to a significantly less serious sentence, but still one of a pretty serious sentence. He's going to do an 18-year sentence overall. But I mean, I guess less interesting for our purposes than the facts of that case is, today is more just like what the experience is of a defense counsel who's representing someone that the public has made their mind up about one way or the other. And there's no doubt that they've got good reasons to make up their mind to some extent, because, at this point he's entered a guilty plea and taken responsibility for his role in a very serious crime. And that's, it's difficult to be in a position sometimes where people want to give you their negative opinion about your client unprompted, and it can be honestly frustrating and upsetting when people suggest that because you're representing that person or their idea of that, whatever that type of person is, that you are as a lawyer immoral for doing that. And I mean, you don't get into this business without having or developing very quickly a thick skin, and you have to believe deep down in the work that we do and why we do it and the ethics of it, and you have to appreciate that most people don't consider sort of, what I would say is a real organizing principle of what we do is we're never, a defense lawyer, if they represent someone that's accused of murder, is never suggesting that they think murder is okay or any serious crime is okay. They're suggesting that, they're embodying the idea that when somebody is accused, even with a strong case against them, of a very serious crime, whatever it is, then serious consequences to that person should naturally flow from that, and do in our country. And when that's the case, it's seriously important that we make sure that the rights of that person who has so much at stake, that accused person, are properly enforced, and that nobody who's accused is convicted of a crime that serious without a rigorous defense. That's a cornerstone of our democracy. And it's not our job to concern ourselves with whether or not the morality of the the immorality of the alleged act is such that they don't want to be associated with that person. That's not our job. Our job is to be associated with making sure that rights are respected, the law is followed, and that justice is done to the extent of the law and to the extent of our Constitution.
Well, and I think that's important for people to understand, because we often get into this mindset, and I've seen it lots on social media, of just like, no need for a trial. We know this person's guilty. Let's just throw them away, put them in a hole. Mm-hmm. That kind of idea, it doesn't work for a lot of reasons, one of which is the person's now sitting in the hypothetical hole and saying, I wasn't treated fairly.
Right.
So where is the personal responsibility if their mindset is, the whole community just turned against me, nobody heard my side of the story or what happened that night? That's important to get on the table so we can say that they were heard, the other side was heard, and we understand a little bit of what happened. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's invaluable, but it is something where just doing your job every day, you have people approach you and unwarranted and unrequested to give their opinions of what they think of your clients, who you are just trying to do your job and uphold the law just as much as Crown Counsel is. And I think that that often gets overlooked because there is a role to both sides of the courtroom.
For sure. And, you know, I think that what gets lost as well is that the prosecution is doing an incredibly tough job themselves. And sometimes, for reasons related to justice, to sort of their role as a quasi-minister of justice, and related to their professional assessment of what is right and fair in the circumstances, and I'm not talking about any particular case when I make this comment, they strike a plea deal with the other side that's based on the efficiencies of the situation, on what they think is fair, what they think is an appropriate use of court resources, and an accused person ends up pleading to something that's less than what they're charged with. And it takes an incredible amount of courage on the part of the Crown to do that. No one's throwing the Crown a ticker tape parade for taking a plea to a lesser included on a serious crime. They're doing that not out of immorality or out of sort of a lack of diligence. They're doing that because, in their professional opinion and in the use of their professional discretion, they've decided that this is what justice demands in the circumstances. And they have to make decisions that are unpopular, and that's incredibly difficult as well. So the justice system, you shouldn't get into criminal law on either side of the ball if you're there to be, a hero, if you're there to be sort of beloved by the public. It's, we're dealing with difficult situations, sometimes difficult people, victims and their families who find themselves in very difficult circumstances. And it's very rare in life, let alone in criminal law, that everybody's going to be happy at the end of the day. And you have to sort of face up to that and be brave, whether you're a Crown, your defense. And certainly, obviously I've never been a judge, but I would expect that as a member of the Judiciary, you've got to be prepared to make decisions that you see, and then see them be criticized by people that weren't in the courtroom, didn't hear all the evidence, don't have the training they have. And so that's, you shouldn't get into criminal justice on any level if you're there to be beloved by people who read about you in the press.